So the Magog invasion. And most of you that have studied Ezekiel 38 and 39 are familiar with this. And you wonder why the strange names, Magog and all of that. And that's, of course, our fault, because we keep changing the names of things, you see. There was a place called Petrograd for many years, and they changed the name to St. Petersburg. And then it became Leningrad, and now it is St. Petersburg again. My friends in Russia remind me that in Russia, even the past is uncertain. So they redefine things. Byzantium was the capital of the world for a while, and then they called it Constantinople. The Muslims took it over, and now it's Istanbul. But we keep changing the names of things. And Cape Canaveral, remember Cape Canaveral? That came close to being called, it's called Cape Kennedy, and came awfully close to being Cape Hillary if we weren't careful. But anyway, so the Magog invasion. It's well known among Bible. Many Christians are surprised there are other chapters in Ezekiel too. Everybody studied 38 and 39. But be that as it may, it's well known among Bible scholars for two reasons. The first is it's the occasion which God himself intervenes to quell an ill-fated attempt to invade Israel by a group of people called Magog and their allies. And the allies are listed there in the past: Persia, Cush, Put, Libya, Gomer, Togarmah, Meshech, and Tubal, and so forth. And the second reason it's so well known by so many is it appears to allude to the use of nuclear weapons. And we'll take a quick look at some of that. But to cut through a lot of the identities, what happens, there's a group called Magog, one of the sons of Japheth, and his descendants. And they, a group of peoples by their ancient names, and you have a map in there that attempts to highlight some of those, but they align themselves in an attempt to invade Israel. And that attempt is thwarted by hailstones of fire and all kinds of exciting things. Sheba and Dedan are on the sidelines saying, what are you guys doing? They're not participants nor defenders. They're on the sidelines. Strange situation here. And so Ezekiel 38 implies that Israel is at peace and without walls. Well, if you're really strict in your scripture, you got a problem with that, because they're not really at peace, and they certainly have walls. We know there are major walls in history. There, of course, the Chinese wall, which was built to keep Magog out of China, by the way, if you get into the background. The Berlin Wall we're all familiar with in our recent history. Well, in Israel today, there's a 430-mile wall 25 feet high. You can't escape that. It's a part of the news. So how can you call it in a land of unwalled villages? It doesn't quite. It gives someone that's strict a little discomfort, if you will. There certainly are preparatory steps going on. The Arab-Israeli conflict, of course, is overlaying all this sort of thing. Clearly, Iran is emerging as a nuclear power here shortly, and that's becoming a day-by-day source of intelligence information. There were oil discoveries in the Caspian Sea between Russia and Iran, but perhaps even more than that, there are huge trillions of dollars of discoveries just off the shore of Israel today. So it's starting to look as an attractive target. But all these are preparatory steps, perhaps, in advance of what may be ultimately the big show. But there's a question that we need to put right in front of us as we get enthusiastic about Ezekiel 38 and 39. There are good scholars, and I'll use Hal Lindsey as an exemplar here, that argue that the Ezekiel 38 and 39 is part of the Armageddon scenario as is summarized in Daniel 11. That's their view, and that's fine. There's a group of us that suspect that Ezekiel 38 may be precedent to the 70th week of Daniel, which is one reason I'm throwing it in here right now. The problem is the missing nations. The Magog invasion deals with peoples that are distant from Israel, a large outer circle of nations. And so, okay, what about the immediate neighbors? And so, where are the Palestinians? Where are the Lebanese? Where are the Syrians? Where is Iraq? And where are the Jordanians to the east of Israel? Where are the Egyptians? They're noticeably absent in the Magog invasion. And so, where are the Saudi Arabians? In Ezekiel 38, they're on the sidelines. Why aren't they in the picture somehow? Well, as we look at this, we have the nations that are surrounding Israel immediately the subject of another passage. And we have the displaced Arab refugees, I can call them that, which we call the Palestinians. And so there's another subtlety I'll put in our thoughts in Ezekiel 37. You may, prior to Ezekiel 38 and 39, there's the famous dry bones vision, where Israel is regathered as a people. And it says, so I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath came into them, and they lived, and they stood up on their feet, an exceedingly great army. In that passage, the word exceedingly is an adverb, not an adjective. It's an exceedingly great army, which implies it becomes ultimately. It isn't yet. They have a great defensive army, but they're not a conquest kind of army. And yet this implies something else that may be part of the coloration here. There are 3 steps in Ezekiel 37. They were scattered, then they came together with flesh and skin and the idiom of the vision there, and then they came to life and so forth. So the exceedingly great army is an interesting phrase there. And of course the proud, the elite of the services in Israel are the tank corps, by the way. But anyway, let's take a look at a psalm that is widely overlooked among students of prophecy. It's coming more in the fore in the recent last couple of years, and that's Psalm 83. So I want to pause and take a look at this a little more closely. And I suspect that this is a scenario that's more immediate on our horizon and may be an essential prelude to Ezekiel 38 and 39. So let's take a look at it. And so it's the last of the Asaph Psalms. The psalmist says, keep not thou silence, O God, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. So it's a call to God for action, if you will. And the psalmist says, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult. They that hate thee have lifted up the head. Wow. And so this is the last of the Asaph Psalms, and it's a puzzling one. It has a number of phrases in it that raise some issues. Whoever these enemies are, the psalmist is calling God's attention to, is they've lifted up their head. What does that mean? Well, let's go on here. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. Now, the lingering mystery behind this psalm that haunts me still is, who are these hidden ones? The psalmist is calling God's attention to the fact that the people of Israel are in jeopardy, and we'll get to that. But he also alludes this, and consulted against thy hidden ones. Who are, at this point, God's hidden ones? Wouldn't be the angels for a lot of reasons. Who would it be? One of my conjectures, the word hidden ones, by me, it means, the Hebrew word means the hidden treasured ones. They're a prize, if you will, sort of. And who are the hidden ones? My candidate possibility, maybe this is after the rapture, and these are the raptured saints that are absent from the earth at that time. If that's true, it has huge implications for us. But let's just table that for the moment and go on and see what the psalmist says here. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. In other words, the enemies of God have aligned themselves, as it come, let us cut them off, that is Israel, from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. That's the plea of the enemies of God that's going on, that the psalmist is calling God's attention to this. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee, God. Get the picture here. The enemies of Israel have aligned themselves with one objective, to wipe Israel off the map. Not to take spoil. See, Ezekiel 38 and 39, they go to take the assembly against Israel in Ezekiel 38 is take spoil. Cattle and goods, gold and silver. They're going for spoil. Not here. They're going to wipe them out. You see the difference? Fundamental. The very commitment of Islam is to wipe Israel off the face of the map. That's exactly what the psalmist is calling God's attention to. Are you going to let that happen, is in effect what he's saying to God. And he goes on here. See, the primary basis of the confederation of these enemies of Israel is to wipe them off the map. Okay. And we know about some people who articulate this rather vehemently in recent years, of course, Ahmadinejad. And And here are the people that are involved. He lists them in the psalm. The tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites of Moab and the Hagarenes, Gebal and Ammon and Amalek and the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. And Asher also is joined with them, and they have holpen the children of Lot. Well, the tabernacles of Edom, who are they? Now, there's a whole other study that I really commend you to get into, and that's who are the Edomites today. And you'll be in for some huge surprises. And I don't want to use up our time chasing that one. I'm just going to aver for our purposes today that Edom is, of course, among the traditional enemies of Israel, and they are singled out by the Old Testament for a special judgment and so forth. We'll talk more about them as we go, probably. The tents of Edom, I'm going to suggest, are the Palestinian refugees and the southern Jordanians. And let's just leave that without proof at the moment, because it gets into some side studies that we'll use up our time on. But the tents of Edom, I'll show you pictures of the tents of Edom today. And these are traditional ones. And perhaps the most astonishing one is one of 96,000 people in southern Lebanon, the Palestinian refugee camps. And they're not limited to Edomites, but the Edomites are among them. And the Edomites are a special mention by Jesus in two of the letters to the seven churches. In Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9, those that say they are Jews and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan, are objects of Christ's comments, and we'll talk about that as a separate issue.